to demonstrate, or at least give instances of the power of Divine Spirit working through the teachings of Ek, which are alive and dynamic, such as you won't find anywhere else on earth. A very direct path to God. Sing Hu whenever you feel as if you need help, or you're hurting emotionally or physically or something. Sing Hu until you can get other help, because this is the ancient name for God, and it gives you a direct link with the spiritual help you need at that moment.
Have you ever had a dream so real, so powerful that you couldn't forget it? A dream that felt like a message, but no one could explain it clearly. Sometimes the answers we seek in the waking world come while we sleep. But if we don't understand the language of dreams, we might miss the greatest lessons our soul is trying to show us. This isn't just your imagination. This is soul being called by divine and the language it speaks. Today we go beyond story. We open the teachings of truth behind this powerful talk from Harold Klemp, Your Dreams, a Source of Truth. And whether you are Christian, Muslim, spiritual but not religious, or just wondering if God still speaks, this message is for you. Welcome to my Journey Faithful Compassion Hub. I'm Beatrice, and this space is where faith, spiritual growth, and compassion come together to help us discover who we truly are as soul. In this video, I want to share something that really touched my heart. Harold Klemp's teachings about dreams, on how they are not just random stories, but spiritual experiences, gifts, and sometimes even warnings. Let's journey together.
The theme this morning is Your Dreams, a Source of Truth. I believe dreams, or a study of dreams, is as important today as ever in world history, simply because the karma has, or people's actions upon each other and upon themselves in the past are catching up. And now it's time to pay, time to pay, time to pay. And this is what we refer to as karma. And when karma speeds up, dreams, what can dreams do for you? I think first of all, if you study your dreams, you'll find that you have your own connection to Divine Spirit. You don't need someone out here to tell you, what is true about your own inner worlds, because you should learn how to do it for yourself. Sigmund Freud began with the analysis of dreams in modern times, but people have been interpreting dreams long before. Back in the biblical days, Joseph, the dreamer, and many other dreams recorded in the Bible. People have been interpreting dreams for a long time. All Freud did was analyze them in a peculiar way, where he said they are, dreams are a wish wanting to be fulfilled. And this first part has a second part, which is the censor, an aspect of your inner checks and balances that tries to stop anything that's going to upset you from your dream world coming out here into your everyday outer world. And so the censor distorts your dreams. And this is how Sigmund Freud had it pretty well figured. Carl Jung, his idea was that dreams are dreams. Don't try to put too much symbolism to them. Dreams are dreams. And he had many experiences with dreams himself. And then Alfred Adler came after that some time, and his view about dreams was that you must take the dreams in context of the dreamer. You cannot simply rely on a set of symbols and say, this symbol will apply to everyone across the board. You need to know something about the person's background. Now, this is good as far as it goes too, but in Ek, we take Adler's interpretation of dreams one step further than going just into the person's background. We go way back into your background, into past lives, far, beyond childhood, which is an important stage for dreams, but also into past lives. You don't necessarily set yourself up and say, okay, I want to have a dream about the past, something like this. You may, you can. We do this in Ek sometimes. But the teachings of Ek are more concerned with living this life today, here and now. The past is okay, and some people, they get so excited about past lives, they spend all their time telling each other about how great a personage they were in history and all this, and there are 500 Cleopatras loose at any time, and so you take this with a grain of salt. Nobody was ever the handmaiden of Cleopatra. And so you have this sort of thing. The position that I have found about dreams through my study is that all life is a dream, and that the dream of everyday living is no more or less a dream than what happens at night during the sleep state. A dream is a dream. And what I'm saying is that a dream is reality. A dream is as real as everyday life out here.
Harold Klemp says all life is a dream. The dream of everyday life is no more or less real than the sleep state. This teaching is revolutionary. Most people treat dreams like dust, forgettable, messy, confusing. But what if your dreams are spiritual classrooms your soul goes to when you are sleeping? And what if the real distortion is not in the dream, but in our disbelief? Psychologists like Fred and Jung helped open the door, but Harold Klemp hooks us through it beyond childhood, beyond symbols, into the soul's eternal memory, past lives, spiritual purposes, and divine guidance. In reality, people often treat dreams like puzzles to decode using dream dictionaries, but your dog in your dream doesn't mean the same dog in my dream. Why? Because dream speaks the language of your soul, your memories, your lessons, your karma, and your path. That's why in Eckankar we go beyond symbols. We go to consciousness.
Once you get into dreaming and you move along further, you begin to realize this. We begin the dream study in Ek with the waking dream. In other words, as Divine Spirit is trying to give us hints in everyday life to make things work out better for us. This cartoon was in the Sunday paper, I believe. Blondie by Young and Drake, a couple of months ago. Dagwood's about to go out shopping. It's the weekend. And Blondie walks up to him and says, honey, would you please pick up some chicken for me? He says, sure. And he asks, is the chicken the only thing you need from the market? She says, that's it. So he goes out the door, she ushers him out, and she says, now with all your errands, don't forget to pick up the chicken for our dinner tonight. Dagwood says, I won't. First stop is the hardware store. The clerk is behind the desk. He's trying to ring up a sale on the cash register. And Dagwood says, why did you say the drawer is chicken again? And the man says, I didn't. I said the drawer is sticking again. The next panel shows Dagwood in the barber shop. And he's seated in the chair. The barber leaves the chair, runs to the window, looks out as a woman's going by, and he says, oh, wow, did you see that chick that just walked by? And Dagwood's looking, at the person who's drawing the picture, like at the camera, with this befuddled look on his face. After the haircut, Dagwood goes out on the street, and right outside is a payphone. Two young men are standing by the payphone. One of them is saying to the other, if you don't call her, you're a chicken. The other young guy says, I'm not a chicken. Dagwood gets in the car, is driving home, listening to the news. The news reporter says, and finally, eggs reached a new low as poultry laid off. Nice play on words there. Comes home, Blondie opens the door. Honey, you forgot the chicken. He hits himself on the head and he says, oh no, I should have written myself a note. I think it's a wonderful example of the waking dream, how Divine Spirit works with you and everyone else every day. Now, why do some people catch how this is working and why don't others? Well, it's a matter of consciousness. Some people are aware that Divine Spirit works in such a way and are alert to watching for the cues that the Divine Spirit or the Holy Spirit gives. These go on all the time. Now, this is part of the daytime reality of dreams. We call it the waking dream. When Divine Spirit gives you little clues, little cues to make your life better in little ways. But people feel, God and the Holy Spirit they don't care about little things like this. Yet on the other hand, they will pray and make demands of God, saying, give me this, give me that. But maybe that's not in their own best spiritual interest what they're asking. Sometimes people have a yearning for serving God because, after all, this is the purpose in this life. If you don't know your purpose yet, it's to learn how to serve God. Now, it doesn't mean to become a full-time clergy, anything like this. It means as soul, as a divine light of God, your purpose in this life is to develop the qualities of love, compassion, and all the other divine qualities that make you a better instrument of the Divine Spirit. And where and how do you learn this? Well, you learn this at home, working it out with your family. Sometimes you don't see eye to eye. The pressures of the day get to you, and you have harsh words, and then you have to kiss and make up. This is, incidentally, the kissing and making up is then again the sharing of love. Human love is trying to express divine love. And how do you learn these lessons of becoming more godlike so that one day you can become a co-worker with God? You learn these lessons at work. You learn it at the market. You learn it through your mistakes. Each time you have been less than willing to listen to someone else, or patient, or something of this nature, then life will teach you better through some hard lesson. And then people say, well, why do I have to have such hardships in my life? I have a friend in Texas, some time ago, about a year ago, they had some heavy rains, and I knew that his dad had a home somewhere in this area where there was a dam. So I asked him, how his father was and the family and everything, and I said, are they okay? I said, I know they're right near the dam area. And he says, don't worry, their home is above the dam. And he said, if he has any bit of advice for anybody, don't build a home below the dam. And it's like this. So often people put themselves in harm's way, and then when harm comes, they say, why has God forsaken me? Simply because these people, which means all people, are still learning how to move with the inner guidance of Divine Spirit, because Spirit will help you in the direction that you need for your unfoldment. And so when things do go wrong, as they will, you don't say, oh, God has forsaken me, but God loves me so much that He's giving me the opportunity to learn this, that, or the other about myself and how to become a more spiritual being.
Harold Klemp says karma is catching up, it's time to pay. Dreams help you see what's coming. This is not a threat, it's grace. Karma is not a punishment, it is teaching. When you dream something heavy, dark, or painful, don't run away from it. Ask, what is my soul trying to free me from? Dreams help you prepare. That's why some people dream of accidents, betrayal, or death before it happens. Not as a curse, but as a spiritual preparation to pass the test with grace. Sometimes we have already resolved coming situation in our dream and spirit is saying well done. But if we don't understand it, we wait for something to happen in working life that's already complete and we miss the lesson entirely. That's why we need to study our dreams. There is another part that touched me so deeply in this talk. When Harold spoke about building a home below a dam, this is symbolic. Sometimes we build our lives, our love, our trust on unstable ground. Then Spirit gives us warning. This is not safe. This will not last. But out of fear, attachment, or hope, we stay. Then things collapse and we say, why did God let this happen? Sometimes we are mistreated not to fight, but to rise above with detached love. Detached love doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we stop expecting what someone cannot give and instead give ourselves peace. We forgive, we love, we let go, but we don't rebuild where the dam is already cracking. Harold tells the story of Dagwood and the chicken. He kept hearing chicken all day but forgot to buy it. And here what many miss, the universe is alive. It speaks through repetition, signs, and language. The waking dream is just as valid as the state dream. Spirit uses daily life to speak to us. But are we paying attention? Ask yourself. Are you paying attention?
There was a young woman. She found the teachings of Eck about a year ago. And 5 months later, suddenly her life went into complete upheaval. Had a car accident with her sister. And after this, she changed jobs, but she liked the job. She quit one job, she got another job, and then she moved at the same time. But she said, this is what she likes. Because whenever life stops moving, she feels as though she stopped living. And whenever this happens, she feels as if she's hit a spiritually stagnant area of living. And for her, she likes to move forward because she feels life has more to offer. And so one night, it occurred to her that she, above all, wanted to learn how to become a co-worker with God. How could she do this? And so she took it into contemplation, which is our way of communicating with God and Divine Spirit, by singing hue or something of this nature for 15-20 minutes at a time per day, if we can. A quiet time with God and the Divine Being. And so she said she wanted some kind of assurance that her wish to become a co-worker with God was on the right track and how to go about this. Well, she awoke on the inner planes and met the Mahanta, the inner master. In the teachings of Eck, we have both the outer master and the inner master. I don't know how to speak about this immodestly, but it's like this: if I don't tell you, who will, okay? Right? No, I just have to point out the principles here, because the principles with the inner and outer teachings of Eckankar exist long after I'll be gone and all and on. So I do have to talk about these things. Certainly not connected with myself that I get the big head and say, wow, look, it's me. No, it isn't, because as soon as this happens, then Divine Spirit, gives me my lessons too. So I've learned a long time ago, be a humble servant for the Holy Spirit and let it be at that. Love life. Do what you can to get along peacefully with others. Defend yourself when necessary. Give compassion when you can, and this sort of thing, and go on through life. Well, on the inner plane, she met the Mahanta, the name for the inner master, and she was at a worship service, and she saw hundreds and thousands of people in this large auditorium room, and the people were all seated there. They had sung hue. She said, well, she felt she wanted to ask questions about the spiritual teachings, but everybody was too busy going here and there about their own things, so she thought she'd go off into the kitchen and have some beverage or something. She goes into the kitchen, and there she meets the Mahanta. She had just previously met the Mahanta in another experience, which I won't relate here because of limits of time. But she goes into the kitchen, and she sees a cup of coffee on the counter, and she says, I know, I'll serve the people out there. There's only one cup of coffee, but I'll begin with that. She takes it out into the auditorium area. The Mahanta had just watched her, didn't say anything. She goes into the kitchen, out of the kitchen with a cup of coffee, looks at these thousands of people in the auditorium, and here she stands with one little cup of coffee. She said, this is useless. How am I going to serve all those people with this one cup of coffee? Anyway, who would take it? So she goes back in the kitchen saying, I wanted to serve God, I wanted to give somebody a cup of coffee, but there isn't enough coffee, I can just give one cup. Then she looks and there's a coffee maker going in back. I don't endorse coffee because it has its problems, but this was her experience. Substitute tea or Coke or Pepsi or whatever you want, or milk, whatever you want. The principle's the same. So she found that the Mahanta, in the meantime, had filled a tray of cups. It filled them with coffee, and as she came back in here, she says, what can I do? Didn't say a word. He handed her the tray. She took him out there, saw these people. People took the coffee. She ran back inside, and the coffee maker was going full speed. And there was another tray full of cups for her ready to carry out, and she kept doing this. When she awoke, she realized the meaning of this dream, which was a very spiritual dream, was that if you are willing to use the spiritual tools that you have, your talents and abilities, there will always be enough coffee in the coffee pot to serve others. Okay. I think it makes its point by itself very nicely, so I won't belabor it. Another example of a dream helping someone in the everyday life, a man who had the responsibility of accounting for the funds of small firms in his business. He hadn't kept his books up for a while, and one night he had a dream. He saw two young men who came into this room, and they began examining the books, the accounting books of an accountant. Well, the dreamer is standing off to the side, watching this, not taking part in it. And the accountants, they sat down and began to audit the books. And so when he woke up in the morning, he immediately started catching up on his book work, on his ledger accounts, and straightening everything out. And he worked on this for a couple of mornings, and his wife asked him, she said, why are you taking care of the books when normally you'd be getting ready for work? He said, I don't know, I just have this strong feeling to do it. On the third day, he went to work. Two young men walked in the door, and they said they were auditors. They had come to audit his books. And of course he was ready, because he simply trusted the message he was getting from his dreams. Now, Freud felt that dreams are usually highly distorted because they're protecting the dreamer from unpleasant things. But in Ek, we know that if you open yourself to the Holy Spirit, that you're going to very often get clear inner experiences that tell you, in no uncertain terms, what to do with your outer life. The dream world is an interesting one in that it has no beginning or ending. I mean, sometimes you'll find that if you're a dreamer, you'll go to a certain house again and again and again. But when you get back there, there'll be different people there. But the dream world is a real world. It's a world you live in. And it's a world you live in now. And it's a world you will live in full consciousness when you leave this body. That is why I feel it's so important for anyone who wants to overcome the fear of death, is to learn about the other worlds in the dream state, because those are the worlds you're going to go to, because those are the worlds you live in now. But when there are distortions, they won't be there. You live there clearly, and they're usually lighter and happier worlds than here. You know, forget the things of purgatory. If you consider Earth a purgatory, then probably you will have an equal or parallel experience in the other worlds. And you can call it purgatory if you want. but often it's a place and a time with your loved ones where you are going on to continue with the lessons of how to become a co-worker with God. In Ek, we know that there isn't just one lifetime, there are many lifetimes. That if you don't learn all the lessons necessary this time, there will be other times, and there is no hurry, because soul is indestructible. It has no beginning or no end. I would like to read from one more letter. It's the kind of thing, if I don't do it, who will? At the risk of being immodest, but then again, as I said, it's the principle of the inner and the outer master in Ek. It's a dynamic spiritual teaching. We have a close connection with Divine Spirit, so things happen to people who agree to this path or have in the past and have not yet remembered in this lifetime that they left the teachings of Ek in the past and have now just simply come back to try to pick up where they left off before. It's not bad, because that's what everyone does. Many people will come to Ek in this lifetime, stay a few months, others a few years, and then they say, I've had it, I don't want any more to do with the teachings of Ek, and they do all kinds of things to hurt Eckankar. And then they go through their lessons in this lifetime and other lifetimes. And then after life has taught them better, they come back very humbly, grateful for the opportunity to learn the path of truth to God in the clearest, most direct manner that is possible. So here, this letter came recently, addressed to Dear Mr. Klemp. It's from someone who's not a member of Ek. This woman went to an Eckankar open house in one of the southern states. Her husband wanted to go. She didn't, but she went along. When she got there, I'm going to read from here, get her words here. When I first went in, I felt like I was among people whom I knew. And I told myself it was because they were so friendly. Then I saw your picture and I thought, I've seen him. I know him from somewhere. Must be TV or some magazine. You know, this sort of thing. My picture is not splattered around that much, you know. And then while she was at the open house, someone invited her to listen to a tape about Hugh, this love song to God that you sang earlier. And I realized, she says, I had dreamed all of it just a couple of nights before. I'd been there in my dream. I also realized that I knew you from my dreams. The first time I saw you, you were on a porch and you turned to face me as I came up to you. It startled me, for I didn't know you were there until you turned. And our eyes met, and I could tell you meant me no harm. And all my fears left me. You said, I can help you. I said, no, you can't. No one can. You again told me, I can help you. We stood and looked at one another, and I could read you. I could read you through your eyes, and I was aware that you could read me through mine. You told me a third time I can help you, but you must accept it. You must believe me. You smiled at me and I thought, but I know you. And you said, yes, you know me, but not as who you are now. I've been waiting for you to come to me. And I said, where did you wait for me? And then the inner master again says, where I'm supposed to wait. You lost your way, but I knew you'd find it. And I said, I almost know who you are. By what name are you called? And as I try to remember it, I woke up. She goes back into a dream again. Then the next time the inner master then came to her, she said, I was in a garden somewhere and suddenly you were there and you said, see, I found you. And we both began to laugh and I woke up laughing. But I remembered your face. It was the same face in the photograph at the open house today. Well, she goes on a little bit. She says, I'll probably never meet you in person. I'm writing you this just to share the experience I had with you in my dreams. And she goes on to say she and her husband probably won't become members because her husband doesn't have the ability to visualize. And being a good mate, you know, a lot of times if their mate isn't ready, the other says, I won't either because my mate's not ready, but I know about you and we can meet in the dream state. So I'm mentioning these things. I get these letters. I don't often read them because it sounds immodest, and it probably is highly so. I can't help it. But again, if I don't do it, who's going to? I'm just doing this to demonstrate, or at least give instances of the power of Divine Spirit working through the teachings of Ek, which are alive and dynamic, such as you won't find anywhere else on earth. A very direct path to God. Sing Hu whenever you feel as if you need help, or you're hurting emotionally or physically or something. Sing Hu until you can get other help, because this is the ancient name for God, and it gives you a direct link with the spiritual help you need at that moment. I'm glad you could come, and I'd like to close with the blessing of the Vragi Ek Masters, which is not directing God's will or asking God to do this or that or a benediction of that sort, but it's letting things be as they are because they are as they are, because that is the divine way. And we don't want to change things. We don't want to impress our will upon God, but we want to understand God's will as it works in our everyday lives. And so, may the blessings be.
We often feel we're not enough talent, time, wisdom. But Spirit says, use what you have, I will multiply it. One act of love can ripple out further than we imagine. When you serve with love, the supply never runs out. You don't need a title or a platform. Start with what is in your hand, a word, a smile, a cup of coffee, or a video like this. Harold reads a letter from a woman who met the inner master in her dream before seeing him in this world. And this happens to many souls. They feel the love, the guidance, the safety, and they remember. This is not about a name, it's about vibration. Souls knows the truth when it hears it. This is not about joining a religion, it's about remembering who you are, soul, a divine spark of God. The dreams you receive are not random. They are sacred messages of love. When you sing you, journal your dreams and stay open. Your life becomes a classroom of light. So next time you dream, ask, was this a lesson, a warning, or message of grace? Because sometimes the dream is where soul whispers the loudest. Thank you for watching till the end. If this touched you, please like, share, and subscribe to My Journey Faithful Compassion Hub, and share in the comments which part resonated with you. Thank you, with love and blessings.